What's up, everybody? I'm Kyle Markwalter, bringing you today another Film Bite review. This time, the review is for a long-anticipated film. It is the culminating movie of this generation of Marvel films and the 22nd film of the MCU. I'm talking about Avengers Endgame. Avengers Endgame picks up right where Infinity War left off, or, I guess to be fair, with a slight overlap. And it follows those who are left behind after Thanos as they try to recover from, move on, or repair the loss caused by Thanos. Turns out that Scott Lang, or Ant-Man, may have figured out a solution. The film has an ensemble cast starring Robert Downey Jr. You know what? It's got lots of people. As with the other recent Marvel films, this one puts a reviewer kind of in an interesting position, right? It's the culminating film in a 22 film series. Do you look at it by itself? Do you think of it as the sort of tail end of a larger storyline? Do you have to do both? And so I'll do the best I can to balance out the multiple factors that go on in a film like this. Let's start with the strengths. There are many enjoyable moments in this film. In fact, I think it has some of the best action sequences of the MCU. Some of the most entertaining and invigorating moments of combat and fighting that we have seen in the 22 film series. I think part of the thing that elevates it is it flows better in those combat moments between characters in a way that feels a little more fluid while still sort of retaining the sort of epic nature of those combat sequences with some really highly engaging, just visual sequences. And I think that's a major strength of this film. The acting, as well, as has tended to be the case with a lot of the MCU films, is also a strength. Most of the actors do a really good job with the script that they are given and are actually able to elevate moments of the film to a real sense of sort of tangible emotionality. Certain people stand out as doing a good job who have often done a good job in the past, but sometimes in this film in some more surprising ways, like Robert Downey Jr., who continues to sort of build and develop this character of Iron Man in some really wonderful ways. Chris Hemsworth does a wonderful job as Thor in some new kind of ways, and I was actually rather impressed with Chris Evans in some of the ways that he is able to take his character and the words that are given to him and the action that's given to him and do some really wonderful work with it. The film also closes out several storylines in some really satisfying ways. There are a lot of storylines. I think going into it, you got to be okay knowing that, like, in a 3-hour film with some dozen characters in it, everything's not going to hit everything, every single cylinder, every single moment, especially if you're looking for a specific character storyline to wrap up in some way or to get some sort of follow through with them. But there are several really satisfying moments of closure in there. Some not so much, but a lot, at least with some of the characters that we expect to see closed out, that the script does a really good job with. But this film comes with some of its problems. And I think that it is important to make sure that when you analyze a film, you reserve that sort of critical distance from a film to assess it, because I think it's important to avoid like fanism and the influence of an invested interest in a film as opposed to analyzing it on its own merits. And I think that one of the things that stands out to me as something that is lackluster is the directing. It is completely competent, but uninspired. Joe and Anthony Russo, the directors of the film, have done a fine job with the films that they've helmed, like Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Civil War, and Infinity War, but they feel very blah in comparison to some of the directors who have a more developed style, more developed sense of visual look of a film. And I think that that is something that really could have elevated this film to a different level. The directing hits the right notes, but doesn't really feel like it's playing for you a beautiful concerto. As with sort of any large ensemble cast film also, the film is large and it has trouble holding the sort of multiplicity of pieces and themes together in completely satisfying ways. As I mentioned earlier, there is no way that this film is going to take all of the disparate threads of the MCU and really bring them to a head in this film. and it doesn't. And in fact, some of the ones that it leaves hanging feel a little like disappointing that they're left hanging, or if they're not totally left hanging, they just feel underdeveloped, as if it's kind of a nod in that direction, but a recognition that this is not something that's going to be talked about or addressed fully. There's just not enough time to make some of these things as emotionally satisfying as they really should be, with these several dozen characters coming to the end of all these films. It's just a limitation of what they got, right? At the same time, and this is one of my qualms with Infinity War, that is here, but I don't think necessarily as strongly, but logic at times kind of goes out the window, especially narrative or character logic at times kind of has to be tossed in favor of making something that really works as an entertaining film. You can tell, well, the sort of corporate needs of Disney created some streamlining and just a push to sort of finish and entertain the series rather than focusing on the logical elements. And those instances of sort of hand-waving over things that don't quite make a ton of sense for a character for a moment or whatever feel a little jarring. The whole film really feels very adequate and does a decent job, but it is just doing its job for most of the time is how it feels, without giving you some real moment of emotional release and deep sense of wholehearted satisfaction at watching all these characters develop over the course of the film. For that reason, I was actually kind of torn, but I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 bites. There's enough emotionality to sustain my engagement and some highly entertaining moments and some wonderful bits of humor in there that keep it entertaining, engaging, and a good film, but it's really not a great film. That being said, given the limitations of how many characters and films and things they're trying to wrap up with this film, it does a decent job, and I would be hard-pressed for really almost anyone to be able to do something better than this, given the limitations, but it is still not a truly great film in a lot of ways. Decent, not great. Thank you for watching. Once again, I'm Kyle Markwalter for Film Bite. Remember, every movie I review is worth watching. Taste takes training, so train yours. Please leave any comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Endgame, and I look forward to you subscribing to my channel. Thank you, and once again, I'm Kyle Markwalter. See you next time.